A double whammy for millions of Americans heading out on the highway for the Thanksgiving holiday. Not only are gas prices at a record high for this time of the year, but John says that the White House is doing two things that are going to drain your wallet even more than filling up. You love talking energy policy, John. What do you have?
I love talking energy policy because no one in the United States government has done that for the past several decades. We are the only country in the world, the developed country, without an energy plan, and this is beyond stupid. This Keystone XL pipeline that's going to come across Nebraska with about 50 other different pipelines is being shut down. So the oil is made produced up in Canada. We get all the CO2 emissions. We get all the bad. If we don't do this, that oil goes to China. On offshore drilling, 60 miles off the coast of Key West, Florida, a Chinese oil rig is drilling into a 40 billion barrel reservoir. We can't drill it. So we get all the CO2s. We get if the spill is there, we got to clean it up. We don't get the oil. We don't get the jobs. We are becoming more and more dependent on foreign oil. It is ridiculous what this administration is doing.
Wayne, he brought up two great points, the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline and also the fact that with offshore drilling that regulations are being put in place that are maybe hindering drilling offshore. Are we going in the wrong direction here?
Well, yes, I think we are, and we know that even at deeper levels there's probably enough oil for several generations, and the gas, the amount of natural gas we got in this country is beyond. So that's something we can use. But I don't think it's going to affect you this season. That is to say, none of this is going to affect oil prices in the immediate future. You know how long it takes from the time they drill till the time that gas gets in your tank is years. So that's not going to affect anything. The oil and gas market right now is highly volatile, still highly volatile, and that's what's going to affect you going forward for the next 2 or 3 months.
But Tracy, this week we saw that oil went above 103 briefly, which is strange for this time of year, excuse me, and this is pushing gas prices higher again for this time of year. We're at dangerous levels.
But not strange when you have Europe about to implode, and that's really why we're seeing the volatility in the oil market right now. Europe is affecting us on so many levels here at home. So Wayne's right. We're not going to feel the mistakes that the administration is making as far as the oil pipelines go for years down the road. I think, again, though, it is a national security issue, and we need to really focus on that. It's more than just putting oil in your car. It is the notion that we're reliant on countries that hate us to get oil into this country. That is the biggest problem here.
And you know, Christian, and John Layfield has said this many times on the show before, that we need a real energy policy in this country. Are we going in the wrong direction with regards to regulation, with regards to policy?
No, I see two very positive things that we're doing. Both the administration working with the automakers, one, committing to doubling fuel efficiency by 2025, which is going to save consumers a ton of money when it comes to gas at the pump. And then also it's going to reduce our reliance on foreign imports of oil by 25%. That's a very positive thing. And the regulations on offshore drilling, and by requiring and incentivizing companies to actually pay a fair market price for those lease rights, is actually a very good thing in the long term. Instead of sitting on those assets as they have been doing, they're going to be encouraged to look for to execute leases where there's actually oil and gas available and be encouraged to drill those. That's a very positive step. That's going to change the market and see that we actually see an increase in oil exploration.
Hold on, Jonathan. He brought up something I want to follow up with you. Jonathan, hold on. He brought up something very interesting when it comes to fuel efficiency standards. If you look at a new report from the EPA, they're saying that these new fuel efficiency rules are going to add $2,000 per car because of what the automakers have to do. That's kind of the opposite of what Christian's point is here. Do you see that happening with automakers, Jonathan?
Of course. That is the Greens' goal, Cheryl, is to make our use of energy more expensive. So you pay for it at the pump, you pay for it with the green agenda. And I disagree with JBL. The president in this country does have an energy policy, and unfortunately it's that of environmentalism. Everything's about getting us off fossil fuels, using less gas and oil. To me, gas and oil is good. We use them to power the modern world. And yes, it's folks trying to, I don't know, get to Thanksgiving, with their families, but it's also medicines, it's sanitation, it's machines, it's the modern world. to any extent we restrict that process, regulations, taxes, this is what the administration does. It drives fuel prices up, makes it harder to use, but the Greens love that.
Jonathan,
They love
I
every
agree
minute
with
of
you.
it.
Jonathan, I agree with you 100% about that. The problem is, how in the world can you rationalize, anybody rationalize the fact that 60 miles off of Key West, Florida is a communist Chinese oil rig drilling oil? The oil is being drilled. We can't drill there. Where it's going to go to Cuba, it's going to go to Venezuela, it's going to go to China. We get all the CO2 emissions. Any oil spill goes right on the beaches of Florida. We get all the bad, we get none of the good. It's the same in the Arctic Sea. It's the same in the Keystone Pipeline. All the bad we get, but we don't get jobs. We don't get oil. We don't get national security. This is a ridiculous policy.
Wayne, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. It is ridiculous, and that has to be somehow reinforced that we don't do that in the future. But, you know, you got 535 morons down in Washington who vote the other way. And I don't know how else, you know, until they can't tell all these people who are doing Occupy Wall Street, go down and occupy, you know, the Washington Mall. That's not going to change.
But Sherry, you are still going to have gas prices continue to rise, unfortunately, especially for someone like myself who's in the car more than she is at her desk in the office. But the thing is, it's going to hit, in particular, come election year. You're going to see gas prices potentially back at $4 again, right in time for people to go to the polls. So the fact that the president and his administration isn't focusing more on this, it is going to hurt his re-election. And yet it seems to just fly by the seat of their pants.
Right.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
And that is ultimately the Greens' goal, to make energy more expensive, make it more difficult to use your car, to power your industry, to make the modern world possible. I mean, they literally put a chipmunk's life, they put the natural world's life higher than that of man's. That's a philosophy that's fundamental to man's suicide, not his greatness and growth.
You know, Christian, you know, Wayne made a good point about the fact that all of this is coming out of Washington and that policy is going maybe in the wrong direction when it comes to particular offshore drilling. Do you think that in an election year that we're going to see any meaningful change and, you know, will consumers continue to pay high gas prices?
You know, gas prices are going to be volatile and they're subject to the laws of supply and demand. And that's why I think fuel efficiency standards where you actually reduce demand is the way to go. And remember, this is not just the administration. This is the automakers, a public-private partnership. Cheryl, it may cost more for a fuel-efficient car, but it's also going to save you twice as much in the reduced amount of gas that you pay at a pump. That is a net huge win for consumers and a net huge win for our national security.
Just think of the savings we already got with Salandra. I mean, now the savings are just going to pile up from now on.
All right, guys, thank you very much. All right, well, coming up.